Everybody, episode number 2 of the Dynasty Gambit, where we break down your Dynasty rosters, give you the latest updates on your rosters, including injury updates. We break down the type of trades we think you should make, along with where your team sucks. We have, of course, today, I think it's important to call out that we do have a Bayonne, New Jersey 100% representation. Today, it's myself and the Dr. James himself, the author, the one who works 24/7, James Faraday, here with us. He's actually in Bayonne. A little bit of background here. I'm originally from Bayonne, New Jersey. I'm in Ohio now. And James himself is actually a Bayonne resident too. So unfortunately, Marco could not be here with us today. So it's 100% Bayonne, New Jersey representation today. And we hope to make everybody proud today. How you doing, James? How you feeling today? Hopefully,
I'm doing.
You didn't put it in a 24-hour shift again before.
No. It's I gotta tell you what, this is an all Bayonne show, but I am the second hardest working man on this stream today. So, so kudos to you, man. I know you had a busy week. You had some stuff going on. But you know you're here. You're looking good. I'm ready. I'm excited for the all Bayonne Dynasty Gambit show. So ready to rock and roll.
All right, where can they find you, my man?
Well, they can find me in a couple of places. So I'm here at Going for Two. I am on Twitter at TFSDoc. And I'm also doing work for my friends. For those of us who aren't just into football and into baseball, I work over at baseballhq.com. So you can find me over there as well. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. Yeah, that's it. And just, quick, for those of you who don't know who I am or haven't given like a full introduction, I am a doctor full-time. I'm a radiologist by trade. I read CAT scans, x-rays, MRIs. That's actually my specialty. I am still a currently practicing doctor. And I read all the studies that players get when they get injured. And I've read thousands of MRIs in my career. That's what I bring to the table here. And that's we want to be entertaining, but my passion is really to educate and to empower all our readers, listeners, followers to really understand injury analysis better and make the best decisions they can and really improve it at fantasy. So that's it.
That's awesome, man. I gotta pick your brain for baseball later on off air for sure.
Oh, no doubt.
All right, I am Hamid Sandhu, FFJunkie85 on Twitter is where you can find me. I am a contributor at goingfor2.com, and you can find me during the seasons on Sunday mornings, of course, at 11:30 to talk about starts and sits for the week. Without further ado, man, we got a lot to talk about today.
Yes.
There's so much news out about these players, especially the running back position and the wide receiver position from a dynasty perspective. The one I wanted to really talk about right off the bat before we jump into two teams that we have today, James Conner, not expected to be re-signed by the Steelers. Now, they had Benny Snell there and Anthony McFarland, who they drafted last year, but are we really with James Conner not expected to sign with the Steelers? How do you feel about the market that's going to be for James Conner? And because when he's on the field, he is a RB1. He's a high RB2 and a low to mid RB1 consistently. The problem has been his health. And now leaving the Steelers, where his game actually suits him well. What do you think this does for his fantasy value? And also, his injury history is pretty significant.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I got to give a shout out to my Monday Night War Room co-host, Gladys Louise Tyler. She's our resident Steeler fan. And we talked about James Conner a few times during the year. He had some pretty high expectations coming into this year as far as being a really good value, even kind of at his draft position of like a late second round, early third round pick, potentially returning first round value. And that never really materialized. And, I'd love to hear what you think about the Steelers. Like, they have some running backs that are genuinely good. They get no love from the Steelers, and James Conner happens to be one of them. The other one that comes to mind is Jalen Samuels. Is there a more unloved running back by his team than Jalen Samuels? I think there's maybe 20 or 25 other teams in the NFL that would kill to have somebody like him on their roster, and he just doesn't get any love. But let's talk about James Conner. I think he's really interesting this year, of course, depending on where he ends up, and we're presuming that he's going to leave. But what is the acquisition cost for a guy whose ceiling has been, as you said, RB1 in the past? I think it's pretty low. He did not look good this year. and that was pre-COVID. And then he got COVID and came back. And I remember watching that game. I think it might have been against the Bills. I'm not entirely sure who it was, but he looked like he was running in quicksand. I really think that especially as somebody with pre-existing conditions, I think COVID affected him longer and worse than they let on. And I think that really affected him going to another team, getting a fresh start. I think he really does have potential to have a high ceiling. Certainly there's risks there, but I think he could do some pretty good things. And again, acquisition cost versus upside. He's got a pretty decent upside, and his acquisition cost, I think, has got to be in the basement. What do you think? No, I don't know if everybody else can hear you, but I can't hear you again. So you can hear me, but I can't hear you. So keep going, and hopefully the other folks can hear you, but I don't know if they can or not. I know I can't. All right, so little technical difficulties here.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Yes, I am back and alive. I don't know if anyone heard me speaking about James Conner.
That sounded like it was really good stuff, and we had at least I had 2 minutes of dead air. So I would, if there's going to be dead air, I'd rather it be over my segment than your segment. But you know what? We can hear you now. So James Conner is an important guy. So I say go for it again. And if they did hear you, then
I'll keep it really short and jump right to the point. I think the Seattle Seahawks be a great landing spot for James Conner. Okay. I don't think his potential is going to be his ceiling is going to be as high with the Seattle Seahawks just because of the type of offense that they do run. His opportunity will be there, but his efficiency, I think, will take a hit there. But that will be his best landing spot, given the rest of the NFL and the needs for other team that they do have, especially the position of running back, where it's not a very coveted position. And I'd be curious to see what type of value he has on the open market from a price perspective. So from a dynasty perspective, I'm holding James Conner. If I can buy him, I absolutely would, but I'm not going to pay a whole lot. If I can get him at the discount, I'll take my chances, but I'm not going to pay top dollar for him or even second tier dollar for James
You shouldn't
Conner.
have to. That's the whole thing.
And by the way, you're right. It was the Buffalo Bills game. He came back from COVID. He only had 1.8 fantasy points, and all year he had 2 games where he had RB1 finishes. So not exactly the James Conner type of year that you expect, especially on an offense as good as the Steelers. Did you know, just for the FYI, Big Ben tied the record for the most pass attempts in the game by a quarterback? I think it was the playoff game where he tied the record for the most pass attempts in NFL history. I forgot the number was, but it was just a random fact that just popped in my head.
All right.
So sticking with the running back position, Duke Johnson now expected to sign with the Texans, leaving David Johnson as the only real back. that at least from a as a competition perspective, he's not expecting to see a whole lot of competition. Now the Texans are expecting not. They've been saying all offseason they're not going to trade Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson made it very clear that I don't want no more of these.
They may not have a choice.
I'm sick of the cold weather in Texas. I want to leave Texas. He's just sticking to his guns there. So, from a dynasty perspective, I think David Johnson's ceiling was capped to begin with. I didn't think that he would return to form, even going to the Texans. He doesn't have that significant of an injury history. So I don't think we're too concerned about the injury perspective here.
Yeah.
But with Duke Johnson not being there, then if Deshaun Watson, which I still stand by, he's not going to be there week 1 with the Texans, I just don't see a whole lot of value with David Johnson. And I actually would try to sell him and get wherever I can. Maybe a third-round pick, a rookie third-round pick I would try to get for him. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I guess it kind of breaks down like this. I think you're right in the sense that the Texans are completely up in the air at this point. They have players that are leaving via free agency, and Deshaun Watson's a big question mark. I happen to agree with you. I think he's going to force his way out of there, whether they want to let him go or not. I don't think they're going to have a choice at some point, and he's too valuable of an asset. They can get a lot for him, and I think they're going to be kind of forced to. As far as David Johnson is concerned, I think that it brings up an interesting perspective of he's almost getting to the point of kind of an unloved veteran. I mean, he's been around for a little while. His upside is kind of capped, as you said, but if he's a running back and kind of a solo practitioner on an NFL team, that has value. Just on the basis of that alone, his floor is moderate, and his ceiling is low, but he would be pretty steady production, and that has value in and of itself. So I don't know if I'd be selling him as hard. I don't know if I'd be running out to get him. If all the question marks are in Houston, but if you have him, might as well hold on to him. He's probably not somebody that's going to put you over the top as far as 1,500 yards and 12 touchdowns or doing anything that approach what he did in Arizona.
Yeah,
but he could still be a decent complementary piece that you can kind of plug in as your second running back. Steady production, that's got value.
So moving on to the next running back, Myles Gaskin. This guy actually performed really well when he was on the field. He did have missed a few games because of injury, but when he was on the field, he was actually a very productive running back for the Dolphins.
Sure.
The Dolphins have two. They're a very unique spot where I think it's the top 18. They have 2 first-round picks in the first 18, if I'm not mistaken. Now, news reports are that they're expecting to address the running back position with one of those 2 picks. So,
okay.
That worries me from Myles Gaskin's perspective. Of course, if you're a dynasty, in my opinion, you hold him. I don't think you're going to get much value with this report already out. I think people are going to wait and see what happens. So if you're someone who's trying to buy him, you can buy him, but what value you're going to get, I'm not too sure. He's the type of player where you can get him either really cheap or moderately priced. So with that said, I think we've seen the ceiling met for Myles Gaskin, assuming that the Dolphins do draft a running back with one of their first 2 picks. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting stable that they have over there, and they kind of at various times during the year they had kind of a 2-3-headed monster going there, which he was a big part of. They had Breida, they had Ahmed, and they had him. And when he was playing, he definitely put up some good numbers. And I know he won some fantasy championships this year with his playoff production. To be honest with you, the running back, the Dolphins drafting a running back in the first round kind of concerns me less, and I'll tell you why. So rookie running backs in the NFL, I kind of love how this plays out in fantasy because the hype machine always gets oiled up and is blasting at full steam. And I think that, running backs that get drafted early coming in their first year, them succeeding right off of the bat or hitting the ground running, as it were, is the exception rather than the rule. And you can even look at guys like Christian McCaffrey, who is a bona fide demigod now. He was a first round pick, and his first year was kind of nondescript, and then years 2 and 3, boom, he bursts on the scene. That's a long time to wait. 2-3 years in fantasy. Sure, you got guys like Ezekiel Elliott,
Saquon Barkley.
Saquon Barkley is another one who hit the ground running, but again, exception rather than the rule. And, why does that happen? So a couple of things that you see over and over again that, we have to think about. As fantasy GMs, we're not the actual GMs. We don't get to make the coaching decisions. Veterans in the NFL get a lot of deference. Like veteran running backs, they continue to hang around, and maybe they just kind of siphon a little bit of production off of the rookie running backs, or maybe they're just not ready to be put out to pasture yet, and they hang around. Like, Frank Gore is a great example of an unloved veteran who just continues to get opportunities and is still productive. And there may be younger running backs who are kind of ready to take on a full role, and the coach just isn't ready to do it. If a running back can't catch the ball coming out of college, you got to downgrade him further because on third down, he's coming off the field. If he can't block, which a lot of running backs can't, and Saquon Barkley takes a lot of heat for this. And again, exception rather than the rule. But if you're going to get your quarterback killed, the coach isn't going to put you on the field. Melvin Gordon is another example of a really talented guy who got held down for longer than maybe he should have because he wasn't a great blocker, and they were afraid he was going to end up getting Phillip Rivers decapitated. So the rookie coming in is less concerning. What's more concerning is we have to see how it shakes out with the other personnel that Miami has, and are they going to end up with a multi-headed monster again? But even if they do, Gaskin has shown that he can be really productive when he gets the opportunity.
FYI, Dolphins have $22 million in cap room, so they got the money to spend. But where they do need some help is at the wide receiver position, with Gesicki coming up, and of course, having a decent year. I won't say it's a breakout year for him, but I think at the wide receiver position they have to address. It would not surprise me if they went wide receiver with their first pick, and maybe some offensive line help too. It went offensive line and wide receiver. I think are the first two picks that they should make. I think defensively they're one of the best defenses in the league. I just think they need help more on the offensive side of the ball. I think giving some time, and also getting them another stud wide receiver. And this class has some pretty decent wide receivers.
Oh yeah, I know you love a couple of them.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. All right, let's move to the Jaguars. Speaking of salary caps, $85 million in salary cap. This team is absolutely loaded with money to spend. So with this offseason, the following free agents, it's D.D. Westbrook, Chris Conley, and Keenan Cole are all going to be free agents this offseason. We're, I think, 2 weeks away from the free agency. So having said that, that leaves Laviska Shenault, who's going to be in the sophomore season, and the man that was, speaking of hype trains, was extremely hyped going into the season was, of course, DJ Chark, who did not have a season that you thought he would have. He had a pretty decent year 2 years ago, and we expected him to build on that, but that just did not happen due to the inconsistency at quarterback play and, of course, with him as well. So, and the game script was in his favor because they had to throw so much and keep up with the scoring. And yet he did not produce. But now, Laviska Shenault and him and DJ Chark are the only two active running backs who are expected back and not actual free agents. So, with the Jags, with DJ Chark, especially because Shenault we know is going to be there. He's going to be that dual threat. He'll run the ball. He can also catch the ball too. But the clear question with DJ Chark, me as an owner of DJ Chark, he's dirt cheap. I can't sell him. I can't afford to even sell him because I won't get anything for him. On the other hand, as a buyer, this is prime opportunity. It's like when the stock dips like 200%. You buy into the dip. Same with DJ Chark. I think this is where you buy the dip on DJ Chark. What are your thoughts about that?
Listen, you said it perfectly. I got nothing to add. Like, his value is probably not going to be lower. He's got the talent to, produce at a really high level, and they've got a lot of money to bring players in. They're probably going to bring in a stud quarterback with their first pick. It's a really interesting spot. So you said it.
All right. So with that, let's jump right into our first team we're talking about today. This team has now actually, unlike last 2 weeks ago, I'm actually going to be able to share these rosters on the chat as well.
Okay.
So this is my first stab at it, and not exactly how I wanted to display it in the chat, but okay, well, that's how we have it. His quarterbacks are Derek Carr, Tua, I'm not going to pronounce his last name, Jameis Winston, and Cam Newton.
Tonga Bailoa, come on, man, you got this.
Hey,
that's even easier than Devin Asiasi.
Oh, come on. See, that's what I have you here for, to have my back.
No, I got your back, brother, for sure.
So out of all these QBs, I think the most interesting one has to be Jameis Winston, in my opinion, because we just don't know. At least with the Dolphins, with Tua, we understand, okay, they're giving him a vote of confidence. We don't expect them to have anybody challenge him for the starting job. They didn't even bring back Ryan Fitzpatrick. So, and I think Derek Carr's role is pretty safe. Marcus Mariota, there are trade offers out there that teams are putting out. And the Raiders are not fully committing to him as their backup. So I think Jameis Winston is the one that really, really intrigues me because Drew Brees has not announced yet if he's going to retire or not. This person here, of course, I think needs upgrade at quarterback. Derek Carr is not going to be your consistent. Right here, who I see Derek Carr as QB1. I don't like his quarterbacks here. I do think he needs to upgrade significantly at quarterback. At least get a low QB1, like maybe a Kirk Cousins, for instance. But who over here do you think you would package out of these quarterbacks with another player to upgrade at quarterback here?
See, I'm gonna take a little bit of a different twist on it because as I'm looking at this and I have to take my own bias out of the equation. I am a Raiders fan, but I can be objective. I think that this quarterback list is interesting to me. I think he kind of has, he is missing that big name guy, that stud that you want to have, but he might already have him. We just don't know yet because Jameis Winston could be that top 12 guy, and he could. When he was in Tampa Bay, sure, he went 30 for 30 and threw 30 interceptions, but he also threw over 30 touchdowns and 5,000 yards, and that was pretty potent. So he's got potential to be that guy. We just don't know if it's going to happen yet. So while he's waiting for that to happen, I think Derek Carr gives him a decent floor. His job, Mike Mayock and John Gruden were, quote, pounding the table that he's going to be their guy. And he is pretty, he was listening to Jeff's podcast last night on a replay, and he used the word vanilla to describe Derek Carr. And I thought that was very apropos, but vanilla is not a terrible flavor sometimes. And if you're looking for steady production, he'll give you steady production. He's not going to win you your league, but he probably won't lose it for you either. So with all that being said, he also has Cam Newton, where we don't know where he's going to land. He's had some injuries. He kind of had some vague abdominal injury stuff beginning in early December, which, may have been a core injury, may have been a sports hernia. He could still end up needing surgery, but we haven't seen his full potential. But if you remember, in the beginning of the year, he was looking like a fantasy darling. He exploded in the first few months and was putting up ridiculous scores, fantasy points wise, and then kind of trailed off. But if you get 4 or 5 weeks of that type of production, that's got value too. So my take on it is I'm not as key on him upgrading the quarterback position just yet. I think he's got other needs that we can get to that may be more pressing.
Well, okay, so but now you run into the risk of, okay, I'm banking on Drew Brees retiring one. Then I'm banking on that the Saints are going to make Jameis Winston their quarterback of the future.
True.
Now, Winston has age on his side and a price tag. He's not going to be that expensive for the Saints anyway. So I can understand that. That's the best case scenario.
We've danced to this song before, is what you're saying.
So, and last year he didn't exactly get the vote of confidence because he never even got the start over Taysom Hill. Even when Taysom Hill was decent, they were winning, and that's why Taysom Hill kept the job.
Correct.
But Jameis Winston, we all agree, has the better talent from an arm perspective. Taysom Hill has the rushing upside, of course, and that's where Taysom Hill made his money, was rushing upside, not passing. So I do think he should address the position via trade. I don't think you should use one of your draft picks on a quarterback because he frankly does not have the draft picks for it. He has the 1.2. He has the second overall pick, the 3.2 for this upcoming year. So that's all. He only has 2 picks. Okay. So I would not address the quarterback position with one of his with his first, which is second overall pick. But I would definitely try and make a trade.
We can explore that as we go on because that's going to come up as we get into the running backs and the wide receivers.
So let's talk about his running backs here real quick. And I think his biggest weakness will be on this team is running back. Wherever as everybody can see here, a list of course: Le'Veon Bell, Tevin Coleman, Peyton Barber, Jalen Richard, Tariq Cohen, Darius Guice, Tyler Johnson, Miles Sanders, and Josh Jacobs. Now, The running back position is because I'm just going to do process of elimination here because there's only really 2 running backs that he really actually has that he can actually start on a week out and week in basis.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't even say I'm comfortable flexing any of these running backs. The starting running backs are Miles Sanders and Josh Jacobs. You start them week in and week out.
Yep.
Now, Miles Sanders, of course, was a bit more on the inconsistent side. Josh Jacobs, of course, went on the field, had all the touches, whereas Miles Sanders lost touches to Boston Scott, lost touches to the quarterback as well because he also can run, which took away a lot of the upside Miles Sanders had, which we saw late in the season. So that is a little bit of a concern. So a true stud running back he really has is Josh Jacobs. So anyone else here, I would not even feel comfortable flexing, let alone start in my starting running back position. So I think this is where his glaring needs are, and I think he really needs to address this, and his second pick has to be a running back, in my opinion. What are your thoughts?
Well, I guess I want to ask you what you think, because I know we've been down on him. He's come up a couple of times. But let's talk about Le'Veon Bell a little bit. I totally agree with what you said with Sanders and Jacobs. The only question mark with Jacobs is possible DUI suspension after his arrest in January. That may not even happen, but it is still kind of out there. I don't know how much of an issue that's going to be. Sanders, he did have some stuff with his knee during the course of the year, but I don't think that's going to be an issue going forward into next year. So I think he's pretty solid there. Hopefully that Jacobs doesn't end up getting suspended for any point in time. But let's talk about Le'Veon Bell. And let's talk about where he is realistically, what his value is now, and kind of where you see things. And then we'll see if we're on the same page.
I can't say he really has much value at this point, can he? At age 29? He has
I kind of disagree with that. I'm glad you said that. I agree his value is in the toilet. But
Did you watch the games he actually played in?
Yeah.
I mean, do you really see? Did he get a touch in the Super Bowl?
No.
I don't think he did.
He didn't. But they also let's look at the reason that they went out and got him. Did they go out and get him to step in and be their RB1? No. They went out and got him to be an insurance policy in case CEH and Darrell Williams were both driving in the same Lamborghini and it went off a cliff. I mean, he wasn't there to be their guy. He was an insurance policy, and they just never needed it, which is good. When you have an insurance policy and you don't need it, that's a best case scenario.
So your argument for the real NFL is 100% accurate. I 100% agree with you on it. But from a dynasty fantasy football perspective, we can't bank on insurance policies here. Like
correct. Right now, but he's a free agent, and he still potentially has a lot of gas left in the tank. I'm using another automobile metaphor, so forgive me. But he sat out all of 2018, 2019 when he left the Steelers. So he missed a whole year there. That's no tread off the tires there. 2019, we didn't really get a chance to see what he was going to do with the Jets because the Jets are pretty horrible, and they didn't utilize him well. Yeah. I mean, no disrespect to the Jets and the Jet fans. That's kind of objective. I think even they would agree. But let's look at what he's capable of, even including the year with the Jets, where they underutilized him and misutilized him. He's averaged over 21 points, PPR points per game in the last 5 years.
Oh, come on. I don't think that's a fair argument, man. Like, you take the Steelers time out of the equation. Yeah. You can't count that towards that.
But to say that has no value, let me tell you something else. So they have a win, like kind of what the equivalent in baseball is wins above replacement.
Yes.
All of the highest wins above replacement in the NFL are quarterbacks. And it's like, I think the number for Aaron Rodgers was like 10, just to give you a relative idea.
That's crazy, though.
Do you know in his walk year when he sat out, who had the high, like at that time in his career, Le'Veon Bell had the highest position player win above replacement in the entire NFL for a non-quarterback. Now, granted, it was 2 compared to 10, but that just goes to show you that for position player-wise, that's the value that he could bring. So to say that he has no value, I take a little issue with that because I think he does have value. And I think if he lands in a good spot, he could still do some pretty interesting things. He's shown it in the past, and he's got the potential to still do it.
So let me rephrase my statement. I didn't say he had no value. I would not feel comfortable starting him at all.
Right now. The good thing for us is the season doesn't start until September.
True, but now if he went to a team like the Seahawks and the Seahawks don't bring in more depth behind him, and all he has to do is go up against who they already have on their roster, I will feel really comfortable as a flex to have Bell in my lineup. Then,
okay, good.
Outside of that, I don't see where Bell can go unless you tell me where Bell can go that I can feel comfortable enough to flex him.
Well, I think it's going to be really interesting because I'm sure you've read and they've talked about it's going to be a bloodbath. Like all these guys are going to get cut, guys that we don't suspect. Who knows? Who knows who gets cut? And who knows who wants to take a chance on a dirt cheap Le'Veon Bell to see if he's still got something left in the tank? And what if he actually does? That's got some significant value.
So are you okay, based on your argument, I'm going to take a wild guess here and say at 1.2 he should not draft a running back.
I wouldn't say that. I mean, I think it's he's got viability to draft a running back there. I wouldn't argue against drafting a running back, but I guess my argument is that Le'Veon Bell still has the potential to give him some value. Because the other thing we have to consider over the course of the year, and this is kind of what I wanted to talk about, running backs especially, but fantasy football, like when we talk dynasty, we're talking about next year, 2 years, 5 years down the line. That's all great, but at its core, my argument is fantasy football is a war of attrition. So it's like we're talking about what do we need to think about this week and next week, and that's it. And that doesn't matter whether you're playing season long, dynasty, Devy, whatever. You can plan 5 years ahead, but you can have a guy be knocked out and have his career ended literally on every single play. So all the best plans, and I'm sure you've been there, I know I have, teams that look great on paper, teams that had potential, teams that could, potentially turn into something 2 or 3 years down the road, just completely destroyed by injuries. So as much as planning as we can do and think about, you really got to try to live in the now. And Le'Veon Bell still is somebody that can live in the now. Sure, draft a guy and try to groom him or, trade the pick and get somebody else in there. But that's my position. It's like fantasy football is a war of attrition. Let me say that again. A war of attrition. The guy that has the most healthy bodies at the end of the year or at any given week is probably going to win. And the best way to do that is to keep around those kind of unsexy guys and get those guys whose value isn't, a year, 2 years, 3 years down the road, but have value right now. Those unsexy, unloved veteran guys, they still can contribute.
Really quick on the last running back point before you jump to his wide receivers.
Yeah.
Tariq Cohen is someone you do not – anyone who has Tariq Cohen, do not trade him. Do not. I don't care what – unless you get a crazy offer.
Not even for Nick Chubb?
Hey, you remember? You remember?
Come on, man.
Yes.
The doc never forgets. Come on.
So good. But yeah, if you have Tariq Cohen, don't trade him. Hold him. He's coming off an ACL, and you did talk about it last week, 2 weeks ago, actually, about coming back from ACL. Usually takes an extra season, or at least the second half of the season, for the players to be back to what they used to be. So do not trade Tariq Cohen.
I totally agree.
Moving to his wide receivers. This is why I feel like he has to draft a running back. Look at those wide receivers he has. He has
stud. I mean, I love his wide receivers. This is great.
This is dirty right here, man.
Yeah, this is great.
Allen, DeAndre Hopkins, Mike Evans, and Tyler Lockett alone. Forget about the rest of the receivers, man. I mean, okay, I'll respect Jarvis Landry. There's no Jarvis Landry.
Oh my God, yeah.
Like this is a PPR machine right here of a wide receiver core he has.
Absolutely.
Like he could take he could package a quarterback with a wide receiver with the team that needs the depth to upgrade either at quarterback, or at least with that 1.2 draft a running back. That's why I feel like he needs to adjust his running back. Now, granted, tight end, I'm not even going to pay too much attention to because you know what? Tight end is such a flux position. It's week in and week out. In Dynasty, you can get a tight end pretty cheap in your rookie draft too.
Yep.
Now, of course, everybody knows how much of a big Pitts guy I am. I think the guy's an absolute monster in the league. At 1.2, though, with given this lineup,
I do want to ask you about that. We're going to come back to that, but I want you to finish your point on the wide receivers. But we're going to come back to Pitts.
All right, sure, man, absolutely, yeah. But I feel like he definitely needs to address the running back position at 1.2. What are your thoughts on this wide receiver core?
Yeah, I mean, looking at this wide receiver list, I think when he's, if and when he's going to make a move, and he probably should, because this is depth on top of depth. You just throw a dart at this board, and you're going to hit a guy that you would be very happy starting. Keenan Allen, Nuck Hopkins, Mike Evans, Tyler Lockett, Jarvis Landry. Pick any of those three on any given week, and you still got 2 in the bank that you could start on bye weeks and things like that, and that's a stud roster. And we haven't even talked about Darius Slayton, who's down kind of at the bottom of his depth chart, who had almost 100 targets this year. Golden Tate is gone. Looks like he's going to be a starter. And he's got upside for even more in 2021, and he's a good depth piece, and that's number 6 on his roster, and that's if you're not a believer in Alshon Jeffrey, which for the record I am not. But
speaking of injury history, and he's a free agent, right? I don't think he's expected to be with the Eagles. Was he cut already?
I don't know if he was cut or they're gonna cut him or whatever, but I think you're right. He's not, he's not looking to be around. Chronic leg injury since he was in Chicago. He tore his rotator cuff. He had Liz Frank surgery in 2019. He's 31. Other than that, no major issues. But yeah, I wouldn't. The point is, I wouldn't be counting on Alshon Jeffrey this year. If you get something out of him, great. If somebody's a believer and they think that he can get into, I'm going to date myself. If he can get into the DeLorean and go back to 5 years ago, then that's something. But he would be the guy that I would want to move on from. But you could package any of those other guys that we talked about, those 5 studs that he has. You could package 2 of them, and you could upgrade quarterback. And you could upgrade running back at the same damn time.
Now, I have a quick correction. Alshon Jeffrey is expected to be cut once the league New Year starts.
Okay, well, that makes sense.
So, which is expected. I mean,
yeah, that makes sense.
That's not surprising at all. Especially Deshaun Jackson as well. That leads to there's Ward now is going to be there, of course, and then there's who else is on their depth chart?
Fulgham.
That's right. Travis Fulgham is such an real quick point about Jalen Reagor before we move on. I hated the pick when the Eagles made it at the time. Why? Look at this guy.
Oh, wait, we still talking about the Eagles wide receivers? I'm sorry. You lost me there for a second.
We totally
no, please, go ahead.
Right? Yeah, I just want to say I just hated that pick. I hated it at the time. It was a terrible pick. I think they could have had Jefferson. They could have had Jefferson, I think. I could be wrong. I'll go back and check that. But
I think a lot of teams could have had Jefferson. Hey, you know who's laughing about this whole thing? Nelson Aguilar.
Oh, my God, dude. What a year he had for the Raiders. Well, yes. I think he was their leading receiver, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
He was the leading receiver.
Yeah. And he was great. He was great for them.
He wants to sign back, and the Raiders do want him back, but I don't think they're gonna have to pay up a little bit.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna have to pay up a whole lot, but I think they'll have to pay up to at least re-sign him. The Raiders currently only have 3.9 million in cap space though, so they're gonna have to maneuver a few pieces to make room.
Well, I guess they'll cross that bridge when they get to it. But Aguilar, like his stock was in the sub basement after he left the Eagles, and it turns out he got the last laugh. And he's like, "Well, look, guys, it wasn't me."
It wasn't me. We do have a question from a listener. I do want to bring it up. So, and this is not on the chat. It was brought up that I want to bring it up on the show.
Okay.
This guy has Kenny Golladay and Allen Robinson.
Yep.
So his concern, he wants to know our thoughts about what to do with both these receivers. He's worried that Kenny Golladay is not going to resign with the Lions. And, of course, now that they have Jared Goff, that's in my opinion, it's a downgrade for Kenny Golladay. And on the other hand, with the Bears, the quarterback position is a huge question mark. Again, like it seems like every single year. His concern is, should he sell high while he still can for Allen Robinson and Kenny Golladay, or are people going to be worried that with the uncertainty at the QB position or where they sign, especially Kenny Golladay, should he just hold them and just take the chance? The talent, in my opinion, is there for both of these players to do well wherever they go.
Yep.
The problem, though, becomes is one, where they go, and two, who the quarterback is or where they are currently.
Yeah.
So what would your thoughts be about those two guys?
Yeah, I kind of agree. I mean, they're both risky, not so much from a talent perspective, but kind of where they end up. So I think it really comes down to what could you get for them and what are your needs specifically. It's really that's really for me what it is. Like, is there somebody that's really high on both of those guys talent wise, and they kind of are downplaying the situation and they're willing to roll the dice, and you can get something that's really going to help you now. then yeah, that's something I would really consider. It's not the worst thing in the world to hold them because they're both talented guys and they could really produce at an elite level or a very high end level when they're playing. And if they get in a good spot, it could be even better. But I think, they're not completely reliant on their system and quarterback play and things like that. Like Allen Robinson, despite Trubisky's, ups and downs, he still had a pretty good year.
Oh yeah. He was
and
one of the more consistent wide receivers in the league last year.
And Galladay, the expectations for him were through the roof. I am a little more concerned about his injury because he has been out for months, and I still don't know what the injury actually was. But he just kept being like questionable, wouldn't play, didn't practice, and he just never made it back. So more maybe coming on that. So I would certainly be on the lookout for more information on what that's all about. And so whoever the viewer, the listener is, or whatever, as this thing continues to unfold, keep us looped in, and even if something comes up, shoot me an email at the doc at thefantasysportsdoc.com. I'm happy to, walk you through it as new information comes to light.
So speaking of injury history, Galladay had 2017 missed 5 games, the hamstring strain. Missed 1 game. Oh, I'm not going to care about the chest injury. He missed a hamstring strain in 2020 week 1. He missed 2 games, and then the hip injury he missed week 8. He missed the rest of the season because of a hip injury. So,
yeah,
can you talk a little bit about hip injuries in general? Like, what type of recovery? Well, based on the severity, of course, he missed 9 games. He missed the rest of the season. He missed half the season. So I think it's pretty severe. Are there any concerns with that injury? 1, lingering, or 2, holding him back a bit moving forward?
Yeah, I have a decent amount of concern there just because of the length of time that he was out and the fact that we talked about him a lot on the Monday Night War Room. It seemed like it was almost a weekly or 2-weekly thing where it's like, let's check in on Kenny Galladay. No change. He still hasn't practiced. He's not playing. He doesn't really look like he's particularly close. Hip injuries can be tricky. They kind of run the gambit. There are things like the Dynasty Gambit. See what I did there?
Yeah, I like that.
Something like a hip pointer, which is basically like a bruise in and around the hip area, which can be pretty painful, but usually people recover from that. And, players recover about 1 to 3 weeks, but there's cartilage in the hip joint. If you tear that can be a problem. That can require surgery. We don't know if he had a break. I mean, he could have broken his hip and we don't know about it. And there's a lot of muscles and ligaments that are around the hip that you can strain and injure. The hip's a big joint and there's a lot of stuff going on there. And the fact that we never got any information as to what was going on, I really don't like. It does give me some concern that there could be something that could potentially linger. It may not. He's a young guy and he's shown some, elite ability. But I'm pretty conservative when it comes to injuries as it is, but if I feel like somebody's overplaying an injury, I'll tell you. This, I don't necessarily think that the caution is overplayed. I think there's legitimate reason to be cautious with him, irrespective of his landing spot or anything else, just on the basis of his injury alone and not knowing what it is.
Yeah, I was actually just scrolling through his history. I can't find anything on what the injury actually was.
Yeah, they never told us.
It was against the Colts in week 8. He left the game with a hip injury. And that was in the first half, but we have no idea. There's no information of what the hip injury actually was. Yeah. So that's a big. That is a little concerning. The fact they've been so private about it too. That would be concerning. Okay. So now, with that said, we have one other question that our listener did have for us. This is not on the show. It's off the air. He has Tom Brady and Jared Goff. Those are the 2 quarterbacks.
Okay.
Now, he's asking he had an offer. The offer that was made to him was Kirk Cousins and the rookie 2nd-round pick for Jared Goff and his first. It's a 1.11. Would you take that trade or you would not take that trade?
I wouldn't take that trade.
Now, off the bat, I will not take that trade only because, one, Kirk Cousins, if I'm not mistaken, had 36 touchdowns, I think. Last year, 36 touchdowns.
Okay.
And then on top of that, are we really trusting Jared Goff to really perform well with the Lions? Do we really trust Matt Patricia? Is he even still there? I don't even know if he's still there anymore. Like, Like the Lions offense as a whole.
The ghost of Matt Patricia remains.
The ghost that remains. I just find it hard that if Jared Goff could not succeed with McVay, I'm not convinced that going to the Lions, he's going to somehow be able to perform even better. Or I think his ceiling is already capped with the Lions. I think he's going to regress because of the type of offense that is. It's going to be very run-centric and very driven around that. I don't want Jared Goff. I don't think I don't even think he's going to be a bye-week filler. That's how bad I think he's going to be.
Wow.
Hey, listen, I'm not expecting Galladay to sign back there, to be honest.
Okay.
So that's why. Now, however, Hawkinson is a guy I really love on that offense next year.
Okay.
But story for another day. But
yeah,
we both agree I wouldn't take that offer, and neither would you, of course.
No, I wouldn't. But I'm gonna put a little spin on it. What I would say is I'm not giving up on Jared Goff yet. So what can he do with those two quarterbacks? Tom Brady, he's your every week starter, very durable. He's probably going to play. He's going to play at least one more year. He might play 2. You got a little time to figure out the Jared Goff situation. You don't have to decide now, and you don't have to make a move to kind of sell below market value to get Kirk Cousins, who knows what he's going to do next year. You know, they're kind of both in the same boat. Kirk Cousins could be good. He could be bad. We don't know. Same with Jared Goff. You know, you're a little more down on him. I'm saying you got time to figure it out. It doesn't have to get figured out immediately. And you got Tom Brady, who's a pretty darn good quarterback. I mean, when you got the greatest quarterback of all time as your kind of bridge to figuring out what you're going to do with the quarterback position, then I would say just play it out. And next year, if Goff goes out and is terrible, then you can address it.
Which he will.
What?
Which he will be terrible.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. I remain cautiously optimistic that he could still be better.
Do you think Galladay signs back with the Lions? I don't think he will.
I have no idea.
If you have to, what does your gut tell you? You think he signs with the Lions?
My gut tells me I have no idea.
Fair enough. Well, my expectation he doesn't sign, which is why I'm very down on Goff. Even when he does sign, I don't think Goff upside is what he had with the Rams a couple of years ago.
All right. Well, let me propose this to you, Mr. Dynasty. Didn't the Lions get 17 first-round picks when they traded away Stafford? In addition to getting Goff, they got a bunch of first-round picks.
They
right?
did. They did.
So they go and use those first-round picks in 2 years. The Lions could conceive. I mean, stranger things have happened, right? The Browns are in the playoffs. You know, anything could happen. 2 years. 2 years is a long time to develop these guys. I'm just saying it could happen. Stories change. He doesn't have to worry about it right now.
Anything is possible. Todd Gurley can get 2 new knee replacements and be gone again.
Okay, that's not happening.
But okay, all I'm saying here is that I don't think Jared. Okay, do we both agree that Jared Goff cannot carry a team?
Say again.
Can we both agree that Jared Goff cannot carry a team?
Listen, Jared Goff is I'm not buying into that. Jared Goff is young. You're ready to trade the guy. The guy was in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Yeah, McVay. The system, et cetera, et cetera.
And Todd Gurley, who
had one. Okay. Well, Todd Gurley didn't really play that much that year. He was all banged up, and it wasn't like he was Todd Gurley 2017. Like McVay system, I get it. He had one bad year. Everybody's ready to shovel dirt on him. Give the kid a chance.
It's the film. Wait, he's going to the Lions. Are the Lions a better offense than the Rams are?
No.
The piece, of course not. Not only that, he's going now. Granted, yeah, they have the equity, they have the draft picks to make improvements, and Goff is young. Yes, 100%. You're right about that.
Okay.
But from a dynasty perspective, I don't want to wait for that to formulate itself. Now, if they happen to draft a Justin Jefferson in this draft somehow, and they just explode, and yeah, sure, we can see some, uptick. I just don't think his ceiling is a consistent, even low QB1 on a weekly basis. I think he's a middle to high QB2 with the rare QB1 upside.
Okay, and that I'm totally fine with that. I guess my point is that it's all about what do I need to do now? What do I need to do maybe next year or 2 years or whatever in the future? He doesn't have to address it now. And that deal that he got offered, that doesn't excite me at all. Like that is at best a lateral move. At worst, he's 100%. Getting worse. So,
100%. So I agree
pass on the trade. Move. And whether or not Goff pans out or not, it's immaterial. The trade is garbaggio. So So wait for something better or don't, but don't take that trade.
All right. You know what? I'm gonna remember. I'm actually gonna make a note of this Jared Goff conversation, and I'm gonna come back to it, man. Next year we're gonna talk about this again.
Yeah, well, we got plenty to talk about.
All right, man. This was a great show.
Well, wait, before we bounce,
sure.
Talk to me about Pitts, and I know you love them, but first-year tight ends, they don't always hit the ground running. As a matter of fact, I'm racking my brain for the last time that it happened, and I'm having a little trouble. So do you think you're talking about investing some high rookie draft capital in him.
Yep.
Do you feel like he's going to be the ultimate exception to the rule, or are you still kind of expecting him to be middle of the roadish year one and really explode year two, year three, something like that? I'm really curious as to your take on that, because I know both you and Marco are high on him, really high.
You're 100% right. Tight end is the position that takes the longest to adjust to the NFL game, because the tight end position in today's NFL, they do so much running routes, blocking, of course. So there's a lot of things they have to do. They have to learn the entire playbook from from the running game and the passing game perspective. They have different assignments. So given that, of course, I'm not going to hold that expectation for him to just, burst onto the scene and go absolute Justin Jefferson nuts. However, we are the Dynasty Gambit, not the redraft Gambit.
For sure.
Given that now, your team need is important. This team we talked about today, 1.2, I'm not drafting Kyle Pitts, because guess what? You have bigger needs at running back position.
Sure.
I would draft the running back there. Now, if you have the 1.5, the 1.6, somewhere around that range, I would consider Kyle Pitts there. I think the jump from year one to year two is going to be significant. It's the same thing I said about TJ Hawkinson.
Okay.
Hawkinson had a great year this year. And that's and I don't even think he's reached his full potential. I think Jared Goff will actually increase the value that he had. I think Hawkinson has the chance to have an even better year, bigger jump. And Hawkinson's not considered he's considered a better blocking tight end because he came out of the same class that Noah Fant came out of. And Noah Fant was considered the better receiving tight end.
Yeah.
Both of them have done pretty decent so far in their careers, but I think Hawkinson's upside is significant this upcoming year. Given that, Kyle Pitts, I think, is a better tight end than both of them. I think Kyle Pitts is the overall total package, and I think he's going to have a season. I think he'll have a decent season. It's hard to predict tight ends, but year 2 and 3 and so on and so forth, of course, a lot matters where you get drafted, of course.
Sure.
But I do think that Kyle Pitts is going to be a beast. I think I'm more confident year 2, year 3 than I am year 1.
Okay.
Don't draft him thinking you're getting a stud year 1. He's going to go nuts. I would not hold that exception.
Okay. All right. That's what I wanted to know. That's why the people are tuning in, my man. That's some great analysis. And I was certainly curious myself, especially last show, you and Marco really high on Pitts. So, I was curious as to, drafting him that high, what's the expectation level? And I'm glad to hear the clarification on that. So thanks.
Yeah. Tight end's the exception there. You have to be patient with the tight end.
You have to be patient for sure.
Like TJ Hawkinson, Noah Fant, they both took a little time. Janu Smith took a couple of years. Irv Smith is now going to have the opportunity. Ian Thomas with the Panthers hasn't really had that breakout. He has the skill set. It's just not working. I don't know why. I haven't watched a whole lot of film or read the data to understand that. So the tight end position does take time. No matter how talented you are, you need time. Rob Gronkowski took time. Aaron Hernandez took time.
Yes.
So just give it time with the tight end position, but you will not be disappointed with Kyle Pitts. But draft him if you need him. Don't draft him because he's the best player on the board available when you have other positions to address. So with that said, man, this was awesome. I cannot wait. 2 weeks from now, we're going to do this again.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to bring up Jared Goff because I want to hear Marco's take on Jared Goff. But tell us, James, again.
You guys are going to gang up on me. That's okay. I'm fine standing out on an island.
Where can the folks find you? And please tell us again about your book, man. I got the hardcover copy yesterday. I'm excited to read it.
Awesome. That's great, man. You guys, we talked about, I'm a practicing doctor, and my passion is helping people, empowering people to get better at injury analysis and really using it to your advantage. And we did talk about the book. The ebook is available on Amazon right now. It's called Injuries Suck, but your fantasy team doesn't have to. And I'm really proud of that content. It's almost 15 years of medical training and expertise, crammed into about 100 and a little over 100 pages. Just in time for baseball season, but also prepping for the NFL and the NFL draft. Basketball season's underway. It's good for all that stuff. Whatever your format is, it's going to help you, really get good at injury analysis, empowering you to make your own decisions, not relying on anybody else, not relying on me, not relying on all the other injury content out there. And there's some really good stuff, but, giving you the opportunity to get really good at it. Here is the hard copy right here.
There it is.
Injuries suck, but your fantasy team doesn't have to. Right now, up until opening day in baseball, it's 99 cents. So I want you to just contemplate that for a second. It's 99 cents. I bought a song on iTunes the other day. I've listened to it once. And this book for 99 cents is 15 years of medical education and expertise and 100 pages. That's not just going to help you today, not just going to help you this year. It's going to help you for the rest of your fantasy career for 99 cents. So if you can find a better deal than that, take it. But in the meantime, there's a link on my Twitter page. You can do a Google search, injuries suck, but your fantasy team doesn't have to. It should come right up. I hope you guys go out and get it and you enjoy it. Tomorrow night, for all you baseball folks out there, I'm going to be doing the First Pitch Forum online version with Baseball HQ, some of my other friends over there. We're going to be doing an injury roundtable on baseball injuries. And I'm going to be working with Matt Cederholm, the Big Hurt. He's their main writer over there. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll get some good stuff out there. So if you're into baseball as well, come check it out. Want to give a quick shout out to my co-hosts at Going for Two, Kyle Senra, who's got his press coverage podcast, which is doing good stuff. Gladys Louise Tyler, my good friend, and James Conner aficionado with the 2-point conversion. And of course, Dan Rosier, the B League, who does the Back Row Giants podcast, which is informative and hilarious. So if you guys haven't checked that out, please check it out. Marco at 14 Personnel, listened to some of his stuff last night. It's fantastic. He's working really hard over there. Him and his co-host, it's really good stuff. So much good stuff going on. Please go check it out. And that's my story. So what about you?
Hey, man, I'm a man of simple taste, FF Junkie. That's Fantasy Football Junkie 85. 85 is the year I was born. I'm a contributor at goingfor2.com, and you can find me also during the football season every Sunday, 11:30, talk about your starts and sits. I suck at fantasy baseball, so Doc, I'm going to be needing your help for that for sure with my draft coming up soon. I only play in one league, so I'm going to need all the help I can get. I never made the playoffs.
What'd you say? You never made the playoffs?
Never made the fantasy.
We're going to change that. Playoffs. This year, get ready. Punch your ticket.
Year, that's it.
You're making the playoffs this year.
One conversation with you, it's a wrap.
That's it. You got the book. We'll talk. You're going to the playoffs, baby. Get ready.
This was great, brother. I can't wait to do this again in 2 weeks. You have yourself a good one. All the listeners, thank you for listening in. And please send us your lineups, and we'll be happy to break them down. Send us your questions, your concerns, or just tell me how much the Doc sucks at analysis. That works too.
Tell them how much that they hate the Doc's Jared Goff take.
Jared Goff. I've written it down. I'm going to talk to you during the season.
Oh, yeah, no worries there. But listen, I'll tell you this. For an Old Bayonne show, I think we kept it very classy, so I'm very proud of that.
I know, right? All right, thanks a lot. Take it easy, brother.
All right, brother, you be good. We'll see you soon.